Paulo Costa fights Roman Kopylov in the co-main event of UFC 318, and this has led me to look into Paulo Costa's career a little bit and his past two fights, and I came to the realization that Paulo Costa isn't elite anymore. But then I remembered. I used to do long note-taking on fighters' careers, and I did one on Paulo Costa, and I made note of several different things, and I realized that he was actually never elite at all. And he had such glaring holes in his game that could be very easily exploited that it was a miracle that he even got to a title shot to begin with. So in this video, we're going to be discussing the harsh reality behind Paulo Costa's career. So when Paulo Costa was coming up on the regional scene and into the UFC, I believe that he was on steroids, or at least formally on steroids, right? With the physique, you can admit that he was at least on steroids at some point. But he was very much a bully, right? He was a massive middleweight, and he could just bully people on the regional scene, right? There wasn't really any technique behind it. And you can see that in his fights. He just clobbers people, he just walks through them with no technical striking at all. He just bullies people. And when he got to the UFC, it became very apparent that he cannot deal with someone that, moves around, right? He will not attack you if you are active on your feet. He will only attack you if you're stationary. And it also became very apparent that he will not attack you if you jab, right? He cannot handle a jab. Such a basic strike, and he can barely handle it. And this became... The footwork was pretty obvious in terms of how people could avoid getting hit by him, but the fact that he couldn't really handle a jab wasn't really revealed until much later in his career in moments, because he'd fought primarily southpaws. And that's also why one of his main weapons, his body kick, became so available, but it was against very subpar competition. He fought two no-names and middleweight, and then he fought a middleweight, Johnny Hendricks, who retired after that. And he was able to just overpower them physically, and it was pretty obvious in those fights. He won by pure physicality. Even Johnny Hendricks had some success when he moved and jabbed against Paulo Costa, because Costa doesn't really know how to attack people unless they're behaving like a punching bag. Now, against Uriah Hall is notorious for not being able to handle pressure well, and it's pretty clear. Costa was just able to bully him, and even then, Uriah Hall had a lot of success in that fight, even dropped Costa with a jab. But Costa was able to just walk forward as Uriah Hall was very uncomfortable. And against Romero, that was just a spaz fight. I'm going to be completely honest. Paulo didn't show any real technical skills at all. He'd dig to the body now and then, but that's when his opponents would cover up out of fear for his power, and I'm going to be completely honest. He didn't show huge power. It was primarily physicality. You're not seeing him spark people out cold with one punch. That's just simply not the case. And furthermore, you can see it in his physique, right? He's not like an Ngannou type where it's explosive muscle. He is a bodybuilder that likes to punch things to be completely honest. His body kicks are extremely wide and open. He can't jab, right? He doesn't know how to put combinations together well against an opponent that knows how to properly defend. And it's just hilariously obvious. And that's why against Israel Adesanya, he looked so out of place. Because Adesanya was someone that was gonna move, was gonna jab with him, that was gonna, attack the openings he had defensively. And the thing is, Costa doesn't ever check leg kicks, and he has one defensive response, and that is to dip a little bit to his right and lean back. That's the only defensive thing he does. So if you jab, if you put combinations together against him, you can seriously put numbers on him. And you saw Marvin Vettori outstruck this dude. Marvin Vettori is not good. There is... I don't understand what keeps Vettori ranked, because he's a guy that's designed around pressure grappling, but he doesn't really have any of the skills to make it work. And Vettori essentially schooled him when Costa had a 20-pound weight advantage over him. it's just insane. Like, I mean, if we look at just the embarrassing moments of his career, let alone the skills, after the Israel, or during the Israel Adesanya fight, he was taunting like he was Conor McGregor out there against Eddie Alvarez, when in reality, he landed probably 2 strikes, and Adesanya was just checking him on everything, taunting constantly and getting brutally finished by Israel, and then getting essentially, violated in that post-fight celebration. And then afterwards, he kept coming out with excuses saying, he was drunk, which is just idiotic. He then doesn't fight for a year, right? Comes back against Marvin Vettori, walks into fight week and says, oh, I'm 20 pounds overweight, I'm not doing the catch weight. The audacity for someone to show up that overweight, admit it, and then talk like it is someone else's problem is absurd. And then for him to, almost win the fight by that, but with a 20-pound weight event, and then just go on to lose. He was also scheduled to fight Robert Whittaker in April of 2021, pulled out. Kelvin Gastelum replaced him. He was scheduled to fight, I believe it was Jared Cannonier. He pulled out. Kelvin Gastelum replaced him again, right? Then he just doesn't fight. He comes back against Luke Rockhold, a middleweight Luke Rockhold coming out of retirement. And he goes to a somewhat close decision. Somewhat, right? Obviously, he clearly won, but Rockhold had his moments. And if you're not finishing Rockhold, like, if you look at the state of Rockhold in that fight, he was hands down on his knees, bleeding everywhere, and Costa couldn't finish him. That is a terrible, terrible, terrible look. Like, seriously, dude. Mike Perry could finish Luke Rockhold. Paulo Costa just couldn't. And he was getting outstruck by Luke at moments. And it was very clear that he just had no skill other than the fact that he could endure more punishment than Rockhold and dish it out a little bit more efficiently. And then the entirety of 2023 against Ikram pulls out. Against, who would it be? Hamzat pulls out. I know he pulled out in another fight as well. Constantly pulling out of fights for injuries over and over and over and over again. And even against Roman Kopylov, this was meant to be on 317. He pulled out, got a pushback. Costa doesn't actually have any notable skill. Against Robert Whittaker, aside from that spinning wheel kick, he had no success in that fight. Against Sean Strickland, I have no idea how that was a split decision, but he just got constantly walked down, jabbed, and teed. And that's the thing. He doesn't actually have any defensive skills. He doesn't have the defensive footwork. He can't defend a jab. It's pretty damn obvious. Yet somehow he had made it to a title shot. And I think it's just only becoming apparent that his inactivity, his lack of skill, his lack of willingness to show up in the octagon, and ability to adapt and change his style is just, going to make him obsolete. He's not an elite fighter. The fact that he is, I think he will be unranked very soon. I think Roman Kopylov is going to beat him. And I think we're going to see an unranked Paulo Costa for the first time in a very, very long time. From the get-go, I never really established Costa as an elite fighter. And if you look at the skills, I beg of you, go through his UFC career and take note. He's not good. And it's pretty clear that if you look at how he fights, you can tell how he trains. He just smashes pads, lift weights, and spars people smaller than him. His coaches don't do much other than hold things in place for him. And you can only get so far with physicality, and we've found Paulo Costa's skill ceiling a very, very, very long time ago. But I just wanted to bring up the fact that, if you look at all the evidence and you take notes on Costa's skills and career, you'd realize that he isn't good at all. And to be honest, I'm picking Roman Kopylov by finish. I like Kopylov. I like Kopylov a lot. I like his striking. It's very, very clean. His grappling leaves a bit to be desired, but Costa hasn't, consistently established himself as a grappling threat. I know he has very good jiu-jitsu, but I think it doesn't really work the same way that you need to go against Kopylov. And Kopylov is dangerous with head kicks. He's dangerous with his straight punches. And I think it's just a perfect matchup for him to score Paulo Costa on a big card in a big moment and really get some momentum back after the Anthony Hernandez lost. And Paulo Costa, I just think it's the end of the road for him. He had a decent showing against Whittaker. For some reason, he was given a Strickland matchup. I don't know why. And he looked terrible. right? And then for some reason he took a year off. So Costa just continuously amazes me as a fan with his lack of skill, but his position in the rankings. But yeah, I just wanted to bring sort of this discussion to light. Let me know your thoughts on Paulo Costa's skill set, even his personality. He's a funny bastard, I'll give him that much. But yeah, just start a discussion in the comments and I'll see you guys later.